Help me, OBM. You're my only hope. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the 212th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. If you missed the previous episode, go stand in timeout. However, you're allowed to bring your tablet, your laptop, your smartphone, and tune in and listen. It's at thesaleswhisperer.com/session 211. We had Mr. Peter Caputa. He is the VP of Sales for HubSpot, big marketing automation company I've been working with since September of 2014. He was the 15th employee. They now have over 785. They grossed over $40 million in, not gross, net income, over $40 million in 2015. And he was there just about from the beginning, and he helped create their partner program. And I'm a partner with HubSpot, so he has some unique perspectives on selling, on startups, on running big businesses, on hiring, on firing, on the state of inbound marketing and how to leverage it. So go back and listen to that episode. Next episode, we have my good friend, Mr. Paul Sokol. We used to call him the campaign builder mad scientist when he was with Infusionsoft. He has been the behind-the-scenes guy for a lot of big marketers. He has an electrical engineering degree and background, so he brings a very analytical mind to sales and marketing, particularly around automation and processes. So you will want to tune in to that next episode. Today we have Miss Tina Forsyth. She's another friend I know through the Infusionsoft community. Single mom, entrepreneur, getting stuff done. And the OBM I referenced in the opening is her own certification process. And I won't steal her thunder. I want you to listen to this and see what she is doing. But it is unique, and that's what you have to be in business, right? You have to stand out. If you look and sound and act just like your competition, then the only way they can differentiate between you is on price. You must make it an apples to bananas comparison, or you know what, even an apples to pizza comparison. There needs to be no comparison between you and your competition. Okay, you have to choose who to lose. When you make such a big difference, if you're the Apple in the world of pizzas, hey, people won't take you to, a Super Bowl party. They're not going to take you to the NASCAR track. However, some will. Some will still want to eat fresh. So you never really know, right? But you do have to choose who to lose. The old saying, you can't save every pound in the puppy, and the surest way to go broke is to try to please everyone. You have to take a stand. You have to let people know what you stand for. You have to let them know what you won't stand for. And then when you create a clear delineation in the market, then people will rise up to earn the right to give you money. Sounds crazy, huh? But you can really make that happen. And if you think I'm crazy, you are kind of sort of right. But look at, big names like Tony Robbins, or, back in the day when Zig Ziglar was still alive, and, people would pay money, right? They'd pay any amount of money, and they would wait if they had the ability to meet with them, like before a conference or in a private breakout session, and they would pay just about anything. Zig charged, certainly Tony Robbins today, he's at his highest ever. So those are just a couple of examples. I mean, imagine, Oprah, anybody at the top of their game. You would pay big money to spend time with them. So you can create that, and maybe in a small way, right? Maybe in your own city or your own neighborhood or your own region of the state that you live in. But you can create that type of celebrity status where you can raise your prices and justify them and get people to stand in line to do business with you. That's where you need to get. That's where Tina has taken her business, and she's helping others do the same. So you are in for a treat with this interview. Along the way, please be sure, when you go to get the notes on this, and it's always thesaleswhisperer.com/session and then the number. So Tina's is session 212. You can see the notes, you can see the links, the things we reference, the books we talk about, but you can also sign up for my daily email. I encourage you to do that. It's good stuff. I'm not pitching you. It'll help you make mo money. So now let's bring on Ms. Tina Forsyth. Tina Forsyth, my Canadian entrepreneurial coaching friend. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
I am doing awesome. Thank you.
Okay. And for the record, will you please let everyone know that I gave you a chance to back out. So when I have you in tears, there can be no ramifications or retribution on your part, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm coming in with eyes wide open. Apparently.
Famous last words. What they all say. So you have your CEO business school, Profit Plus Freedom for Fearless Women Leaders, and should we put in brackets, and silly sales whisperer men?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. So you and I met through the Infusionsoft community over the years.
Yep.
But for our listeners that may not be familiar with you, would you mind take a minute or two, give them a little thumbnail sketch about you, and then we'll dive down the tear-making rabbit hole?
I have been in business. I've had my business now, almost 17 years. That's kind of freaky deaky when I think about it. But my world, I mostly work with people in the behind the scenes of what it takes to run and grow a profitable, insanity-inducing business. So I created a program. One side of my business is the Certified Online Business Manager training program, which I wrote a book about and created and such back in 2008. And that side of the business is where we train and certify high-end virtual managers to work with us crazy entrepreneurial folks. And likewise, you mentioned CEO Business School. That's the side of the business where I really help people set up a business that's not going to suck the life out of them, essentially. So I come from the place where I'm a single mom, 2 girls. I can't work 24/7, nor do I want to, quite honestly. That's not something I'm looking to do. My business is our livelihood. I mean, this is it. If I'm not making money, we're not in the house we're in. We're not living the life we're living. So my business is very, very important for me in many aspects of my life. And at the same time, I just refuse to have a business run me. And so the heart of the work I do with people is really looking at how do you set something up that's going to be profitable, sustainable, fun, all that jazz. And of course, that comes from my own journey over the years, because being in business as long as I have, I've kind of, as I like to say, I've run the gamut and made probably most mistakes you can make in business and learned some things the hard way.
Right. And
of course, like to be able to share that learning and support people from that place as well.
So you're the behind the scenes person, but you have to be in front of the scenes for people to find you, to bring you in to be behind the scenes, right?
Yes.
So how do you reconcile that dichotomy?
Well, I love that question, because I was the behind the scenes person working directly for my clients for years. So I worked as an online business manager. I worked with a lot of 6- and 7-figure business owners to help them run and grow their business. And back when I was switching my business model from a service model to a training mentoring model, 2008, 2009, in that time frame, that's where I really had to step out from behind the curtain. Because up to that point, when it was me doing my work, solopreneur, so to speak, working directly with clients one-on-one, it's not like I had to be out in front of the curtain that much. And that was kind of pre-social media days in some ways, when you think about it. Like, back in the day.
Way back in 2008. Yeah. Wow.
Oh my gosh. We weren't using Twitter and Facebook and whatever I think they were around, but we weren't using it for business per se. So up to that point, it was really a lot of just like direct connection and referral and all kinds of stuff. When I switched my business model, though, it actually was a big deal for me. That was one of the harder transitions at that time, was kind of like, I got to be out in front of the curtain now. Yikes. What does that mean? And so at this stage, I don't work directly with people in their businesses behind the scenes. I mean, they'll hire our OBMs to do that, or we do some training and support around that, or from that perspective for people. For me personally, at this stage, I'm pretty comfortable being out front compared to where I would have been 5, 6, 10 years ago. That certainly wasn't the case. But yeah, it was definitely a part of that transition. It was like, people need to see me. They need to know me. They need to hear of me.
So
Yikes.
did you hire did you hire a coach to help you make that transition?
I would say, I don't know if you know Andrea Lee. She's a gal. She's a coach / brilliant businesswoman all around. Her and I had worked together for years. She's a great friend still, was a business partner of sorts for many years. I worked with her in her company. And I kind of lucked out in the sense that Andrea was essentially, it's almost like pushing a bird out of a nest a little bit. She was definitely coaching me and supporting me around that journey. But there really was a point for me. I remember in particular, when I was launching our certified OBM training programs, and actually, no, it was before then. It was when I was writing my book, which is aptly called Becoming an Online Business Manager. Pretty straightforward. So when I wrote that book back in 2008, one of the bigger challenges was like, oh, if I'm going to write this book and put it out there, like, I'm going to be putting myself out there a little bit. And like, what if people don't like it? I'm a people pleaser at heart. I mean, I think many of us can be. So there was this piece of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to put this out there and some people might not like it. And this is in the virtual assistant industry, where that book was kind of, that's who we target. That's who we work with for VAs who want to become OBMs. It's not like that's some cutthroat world per se. It's not comparatively to some other types of industries, but in the same way, there's a lot of people who weren't a fan of my message. They weren't a fan of what I was talking about. They weren't a fan. It's kind of like, who the heck do you think you are kind of stuff. There was a lot of that was coming up for me in my head. And so I had many conversations with Andrea. But mostly it was conversations with myself. It was a little bit like, okay, if you're going to go out here with this and take a stand, then I have to take a stand. And I had to be okay with the fact that some people might not like me for it.
They're all losers. You know what I'm saying? I mean, let's just call a spade a spade, all right?
Exactly.
But
it was, that was a big deal though at the time.
Well,
and now
sure.
I don't care as much. Like that's not something that bothers me so much anymore.
Right.
If anything, I kind of I'm a little bit driven by wanting to, I don't want to say always annoy people, but I find what annoys me and look to bring it out in some ways. So now I quite enjoy that side of things.
Very cool. So what is this OBM? Did you just make up this category?
Pretty much.
Very cool.
Yeah. I mean, when I was working, a long story short of my own journey, I had discovered the coaching industry back in 99, 2000. I had just started doing some consulting work in my own business at that time. Came across the coaching industry, went and did all my coach training and all of that. I thought I wanted to be a coach. And so I started working with clients, and we would have calls every week. That was back in the day of like, hire a coach and have a call every week with that coach. And so I was working with clients, and we would talk one week about what needs to get done. And then next week they didn't get it done. And I'm sitting there thinking, good golly, just like do this, do that. So, we got to get this stuff done. And I had an opportunity come up to work with a large coach training organization, Coachville, at that point with Thomas Leonard. I don't know if you're familiar with Thomas.
No.
He passed away in 2003, unfortunately, but is really considered definitely a key founder in the business and life coaching industry. He had a company at that time called Coachville, which does still exist, but he started that company years ago. And I had an opportunity to work behind the scenes in that company. And I thought, okay, I'll just do a little bit behind the scenes here, make a little bit of money while I'm trying to grow my coaching business. Because honestly, I wasn't growing my coaching business. Like, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't know like sales, any of that stuff. Right. It was sort of like, what? Clients aren't landing in my lap? What do you mean? Why isn't this working out this way? But while I was doing this work with Coachville, 40,000 member, high, fast growing training, live events, all kinds of stuff that Coachville did at that time. And I was working behind the scenes with the general manager, who of course was Andrea Lee, who I mentioned already. That's where her and I met. I really fell in love with like what it takes to run a fast growing and a fast paced business. And so I kind of shifted from, I want to be a coach to like, no, wait a minute. I want to work behind the scenes, but I didn't know what to call it. So between Andrea and I, we just came up with the phrase online business manager at some point. To go back in time exactly when, I couldn't tell you. It would almost be fun to figure out exactly where that happened. But it was a way to just call myself something other than a virtual assistant, which of course was an industry somewhat established industry at that time, of course still is. So it was just a differentiator for the level of work I was doing.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because I've had people tell me for several years that I should create a Sales Whisperer certified program. And I've kind of flirted with it, but I've had somebody contact me, and he's probably signing up this week. He'll be my first Sales Whisperer certified person. And I told him straight up, I said, you're going to be my first, so you know what? I'll charge you less, and you can help me figure this out.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. I know. We talked about that a while ago.
Yeah.
Love it.
So here we go. So how did you know what your certification program would look like? Because I'm sure there's people out there in many different industries that could create a coaching program, right? But they're just like, oh, woe is me. Who am I to have a coaching program? I'm not special, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, it's like whoever has the guts to create a program is the one that gets to have a program, right?
Well, and I'm really driven by what annoys me, ultimately. So what started happening is I was working as an online business manager, had a handful of clients, was doing my thing, and there was a couple of things that started happening. I had more business owners. So an OBM will work with the business at the 6-figure and up range. It's like once you have a business to manage, that's where you want to bring somebody in at a higher level who can essentially partner with you, not in a legal way, but in a mindset approach way to help run and grow the business, as opposed to an assistant where essentially the assistant is reporting to you all the time. So as I was doing this work with clients, more of these business owners, as they were continuing to grow, and in particular in the coaching industry, that's the industry I come from and do the most work in, they were like, Tina, I need to hire somebody who does what you do. And of course, I was only available to so many clients. I was looking around and starting to see other people out there, other virtual assistants that were starting to call themselves online business managers, but they weren't doing it right. Basically, they weren't doing it. And when I say right, I mean my version of right, obviously. But I was coming from the place of I had been doing this work for years. I knew what served clients. I knew I really understood living this, what the difference is between being an OBM, being a VA, et cetera. And there just kind of came the point I was getting a little annoyed. It's like, don't go out and call yourself an OBM when basically you're being a VA. Like that's part of what sort of sparked this little thing for me. Mm-hmm. And then it took me a number of years. I mean, a little bit of poking and prodding from Andrea and kind of mulling over it myself for years to write the book and start the training and the certification and all of that. The book was 2008. The certification was launched in 2009. But it really was coming from this place of basically just making it up. But I knew it worked because I had been living it and doing it for years. And I understood the value to me being an OBM in all that time. I understood that role. I understood what it was and the, the ups and downs and et cetera of working that way. And likewise, as the industry was continuing to grow and expand, and even much more so today than it was then, people need a higher level of support. You can't continue to build and grow, 6, 7-figure and beyond with a handful of VAs on your team that you have to manage and run all the time.
Right.
Like that's just not going to be sustainable at a certain point. So it was a little bit of seeing the opportunity, but it was also a big piece of like, okay, this is annoying me. Like I don't want to, and quite honestly, it's the competitive side of me a little bit, which I never really knew I was competitive till I started to get into business. But it was kind of like, if somebody else went and did it, I would have been really annoyed. Right. I would have been mad. I'd be like, no. That's mine to do, to bring out into the world. So it was it was really sort of owning that. And then, of course, like I was saying already, just being willing to step in front of it because it's a little bit eek when you create something and put it out there. And when we're standing in front of it going, all right, here's this thing.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, you recognize the problem and, kind of like Apple, right? With the iPhone, they're like, this bugs us so much. How the process to buy a phone, let's go make it better. Because if it's bugging us, it's probably bugging everybody else. And sure enough, it was.
Yeah.
And they killed it. I mean, it sounds like you kind of followed that methodology. It's like it's bugging you. You know you're not alone. Now let me launch something to go go scratch that itch.
Yeah, exactly.
How did you know how to price it, how to structure it? Because there's always so many moving parts, and the devil is always in the details.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything. It's a little bit of make it up as you go. I mean, I had been doing a little bit of training at that point. So with another business partner at the time, we were doing some training in the virtual assistant industry. So I had been dipping a toe into the water of running online training programs and stuff like that. The certification side, believe me, I just made that stuff up as I went, because there is now a lot more certification and licensing. And of course, there was some at that point, but a little bit of me just being who I am and kind of winging it to a degree. Right. I was just like, all right, here's the program. Here's what people need. Here's what I'm charging the first time around. When I did the program the first time, it was 5 months, 2 calls a week for 16 weeks. I guess that's 4 months, something like that. It was
5 months, 2 calls per week.
Yeah. Well, I was creating everything as I went. Right. Which even then I'm like, oh, that sounds tiring now. I don't know that I would do it that way again. But it was a lot of like creative mode. And then after that, I mean, in the years since then, that was 2009, the first time I ran that program. In the years since then,
what did you
we've
do?
tried different formats.
Did you do a launch, like email everybody, hey, I'm doing this certification program? Did you open it up to like just a couple of key people and say, hey, do you want to be my guinea pigs?
We had 20 people in the first group. It was just, I'm not going to say it was a launch. It was more of like, oh, hey, who wants to be an OBM? Mm-hmm. Here's what it means, kind of thing. Oh, and you got to remember, too, I had, well, you don't have to remember because I might not have mentioned it, but I had written my book, Becoming an OBM, the year before that.
Oh, okay.
So when I first wrote the book, I honestly thought, I'm like, okay, I'm writing this book called Becoming an OBM. Anybody who wants to be an OBM can read it and go be an OBM. Done. You know, it was kind of like, I've done my work here, wipe my hands clean, see you later kind of thing. But then people would read the book and they're like, oh, I want more. I want to learn more. I need more. I'm like, oh, you do? Oh, okay. Well, let's look at more then. And that's part of what birthed into the actual full-on training and certification program.
And so did you look around at other similar programs and say, okay, other 16-week programs are $5,000, so I'll do mine for 4? Or did you say others are 5, so I'll do mine for 10? So part of the pricing, part of the way I approach pricing, and this is the same thing I always recommend when people are teaching, in particular, a certification or a license program of some kind, I like to base it on what their earning potential is. Okay. And first of all, there wasn't programs like this to look at, because there's not, but similar programs in the virtual assistant world, there were some out there, but the virtual assistant industry at large was and still is, it's not a world where people are spending $5-10 grand for stuff. In some cases, sure. But the flip side of that is, for somebody who wants to become an OBM, their dream for the most part is to be able to make $60,000 a year. Okay. I want to be able to make $5,000 a month. I want to work with a handful of great clients. I want to love the work I'm doing. I want to know that I'm contributing. And the OBM is very much an identity sale. Okay. I didn't know that when I first created it, but I started to figure that out pretty quickly. The people who are attracted to becoming an OBM are very much like me, like I was, in the sense that they don't want to be, quote unquote, just an assistant. They either were or have been an assistant and they don't like it, or they're coming from, we'll have people coming from offline worlds or other types of expertise. Maybe they do web design or bookkeeping or things like that. And they come into the OBM world and they don't want to be put in that box of being an assistant because they know they have more to offer. They want to work at a higher level with clients. And so the OBM program, the certification program there, is very much an identity sale. It's like, who do you want to be? Right. Do you want to be an assistant or do you want to be an OBM? Right. And it's fine either way, of course, but it's really tapping into the who of that person. And when we got and understood that, which it was probably about the second time that we offered the program that really clicked for me. Because that was true for me. I got a business degree in 1994. I graduated. I took the first job that came along because, quite honestly, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I always joke that I got a business degree because I just didn't know what else I wanted to do. So, hey, let's get a business degree. I took the first job that came along also because I didn't really think
I could get a better job or whatever was going on in my head at the time. I worked like data entry for 2 years. Then I was an executive assistant. And then I was a marketing coordinator. I was always in these assistant roles of sorts when I was working in the corporate world. And I didn't like it. It was just like, ew, no. There's something more here. Like it felt like a trap. Right. So tapping into that was really a key part of this too. But knowing and understanding these guys, they're not like other clients, like say on the CEO business school side, where I'm targeting and working with the leaders of these 7-figure companies and helping them set up the structure and really understand how to run and lead their business. That's a whole different ballgame. Right. Those guys want to make 7-figure, et cetera. But a lot of people who are in the virtual support world, a lot of OBMs, they can have a steady $5,000 a month coming in. They're happy as can be. Right. So I price the program from that perspective.
Sure.
Like, what's their earning potential here? Their earning potential at this moment, they may not be making much. Right. Even if they've been working online or working as a virtual assistant for a while, a lot of times they're still not making much yet. But their goals, for the most part, round about that 60,000 mark. So we price from that perspective. So, because I had people telling me, oh my gosh, Tina, you could charge 10 grand for this. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I could, but it never fit for me because 10 grand and your ultimate goal is to make 60.
Right.
I suppose that's fine. But at the same time, like we scare these guys off when we talk about the price of the program as it is right now.
Right.
And it's $3,500. Right. That's still one of the highest priced programs in this industry. And like when people aren't ready for it, they're just like, and then we've had people save for years to come to that program.
Yep.
So the pricing thing is interesting. It was a little bit more from that, what's their earning potential space, as opposed to looking at what others were doing. But I was also very aware of being the highest priced in that industry.
And so do you do this now in that same format, or do you have like a couple of times a year where you roll that out and people can enroll, or can they sign up at any time and it's more virtual now?
It's virtual. Okay. It's rolling enrollment. I have a partner that runs that side of the business, so I'm not as involved in it anymore. And we kind of evolved from that first time was the big kahuna version, 4 or 5 months, 2 calls a week, et cetera. Right. Then from there, the next time we did it, it was still virtual live, but it was a 3-day intensive, which was insane. I mean, we were like ridiculous hours. Then we changed it to, so twice a year for probably about 2 or 3 years. We did it live again, virtual in a week format. There's a little bit of pre-work. That was all automated, pre-recorded. Then there was a live week together. And then there was some post-automated recorded stuff too. And then back in 2012, I think, maybe 4 years ago now. Could be even before then. I can't remember the exact year. I was getting tired of leading it all the time. And so we decided that was the year where we decided to change it over to be a full-on automated delivery program. So it's more or less like a 90-day automated program is the way that we have it structured right now. Right. But we do re-record everything live every 2 years. Oh, so we just did that again this spring. Like we just re-recorded everything live this past spring to get the latest and greatest version of it, and to keep updated materials and everything like that. We'll do launches, like official launches a couple of times a year, but the program itself is pretty much open year round.
Gotcha.
Like people can jump in and do it whenever they do it. And then the only live thing that we do with that, we have Q&A calls twice a month. And then, of course, we have a mentorship program for our OBMs who want to get that level of support after they're done the training.
Right. And so once somebody goes through the training, are they a member for life? Are there renewal fees?
They pay, and there's an association with my certification. So an OBM association that they pay a yearly fee for the association to keep their certification.
Gotcha.
In place, yeah.
And is there any annual recertifications like Infusionsoft or HubSpot makes you recertified?
No. You know what? I mean, I thought of that, and in theory we could, but I just didn't want to because that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Right? And it honestly is. It's one of those where I'm like, okay, we could. And the thing is, too, I'm not going to, it depends. Like when I'm working with clients on their certification programs, in some cases, because I do a bit of work with clients in that area, too. In some cases, it's like, yeah, have a recertification every year or every 2 or 3 years, or have something, required continuing education requirements and things like that. But for me, for the way I like to build my business, it's more on the side of like, okay, we just got to keep this simple here, because otherwise it starts to get a little bit of a pain in the butt to manage some of that stuff in the long run. So we require the fee. Like, it's not just a pay once and you're certified forever, which is a model people will do as well, too, which is fine. We do require a yearly fee. The fee that they pay is to stay listed in the directory and to keep their certification status alive, so to speak.
Right. And then, so when you say you re-record everything live, so is it a 2 or 3 day in-person session like you were doing before?
It was in a week, 5 days. So, live in person, though, like virtual live, okay. Not in person, face to face. I've never run it face to face. OBMs aren't face to face people either.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you'll do a 5-day event, and I guess it's just for the current OBMs. They can kind of sit through it, so you have some interaction.
Well, and new people.
Okay.
Like anytime we run it live again, we'll bring our alumni in they can do a refresher. They can go through it for like an alumni rate. And then we also have new students that come in and go through it live again, too.
And then is it like 4 hours a day or 8 hours a day for 5 days?
It is 6 hours a day, like breaks.
Wow. Along
the way for 5 days. It's tiring.
Wow.
But it's only every 2 years.
And it's all virtual, though. That's amazing.
And it's all virtual, yeah. And I don't know, like, I mean, I don't do a lot live just by nature of where I live and the fact that I have young kids. My business is not one that's run on doing a lot of live events and various things that people do. But this formula has worked really well for us. And it also is, too, I mean, OBM type people who are attracted to that type of work, they're wanting flexibility. They want to be from home. They're not in front of the stage people anyhow.
Right.
So they're perfectly happy to be receiving this in a virtual. We do a live retreat every year with our OBMs, just an annual thing that we do. But the training and everything like that, it works really well from a virtual perspective.
And is that retreat optional?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I would think that these type of people, behind the scenes, more nurturing types, would gravitate towards something live and in person where they can meet and hug and flesh things out. So is it well attended? I mean, I would think it is.
Well, we do have a mentorship program that they can take. They can be a part of after the certification program, too.
Okay.
So we run our mentorship programs, and we call it OBM Mastery. It goes it's a 6-month cycle. So people will join 6 months, and they can renew, they can stay in. We've had people stay in for years. That's a part, too, where you really get that connection. You get that support in a lot of ways. I mean, at the end of the day, nothing beats face-to-face. But with this market in particular, I mean, face-to-face it's a much harder sell.
Right.
Like if I'm speaking to a group of coaches, a group of people who, coaches, speaker, author, trainers, they're like, woohoo, get me out of the house. Let's get together kind of thing, like very motivated by that. With this industry, it's not the same thing. And some of them flat out won't travel. It's kind of like,
right.
I got into this because I don't want to travel.
Right.
I want to be here for my kids. I want to have that flexibility with my schedule. I'm committed to that. I mean, those kind of things come into play. Now, those who do come to the retreats, oh, yeah, it's always a great time.
Right.
I mean, you really can't beat the face-to-face and the connections and such that occur with that, absolutely.
And how long is the retreat?
We do it. The one we just did, it's either 2 or 3 days. I mean, we've tried it a few different formats.
Right.
I do them up here in Banff, which is Rocky Mountains in Alberta here, which is beautiful. And of course, being in Canada, it's making our American clients come to Canada.
That's over by Sweden, right? Or is it by South Africa? I forget.
The Great White North. Yes.
And,
I know it's kind of funny. Some clients over the years are like, "You're making me come to Canada?" I'm like, "It'll be worth it, I promise you. We're not living in igloos. It's all good."
So, do you call Canadian whiskey just whiskey?
Well, yeah.
And do you call Canadian bacon just ham?
Well, yeah, Canadian bacon. It's weird. I don't even know what that stuff is. I think I looked that up once. Like, I'm like, why is this called Canadian bacon?
I know.
It's not like we're getting it at, the restaurant. Like, here's your Canadian bacon.
It's just bacon, right?
Exactly. We just get bacon. Bacon.
I like regular bacon, though. Mo better. I'm just saying.
I do, too. I'm with you there. I don't want Canadian bacon. Ugh.
So what is, you kind of hinted and we nibbled around the edges. I mean, what is the difference between an OBM and a VA?
And a VA, and this is from a kind of role perspective, not from a person perspective. So there's a lot of people who are working under the title of VA that may come from this place. But there's a few key differences. A virtual assistant is responsible for their work, their particular role in the company. So if I'm hired as a VA to do tech stuff, or I'm doing Infusionsoft, or I'm doing whatever, customer service admin, it's really clear. Like, here's my stuff and I'm here to do it. The role of an OBM is more from a management, get it done perspective. If you think from an org chart perspective, there would be you, there would be the OBM, and then everybody else on the team. So the OBM's, everybody's driven to get stuff done, but it's the OBM's role to make sure that everybody is getting their stuff done and not just I'm doing my own work and getting it done. The role is also, we really purposely train our OBMs to think and come from that proactive place, not just I'm going to sit back and wait for somebody to tell me what to do, but from a really proactive connecting place of, okay, let's connect with this client, let's plan things out. Their role is project management, operations management, streamlining systems, and so on, and team, working with team in whatever way, shape, or form. So team might be 1 or 2 VAs. Team might be a lot bigger than that, depending on the scope of the business. So it's really, their role is really to manage and run the business and not just to manage the function of whatever they've been hired to do in some way, shape, or form. And that's a rude awakening for a lot of business owners. I mean, I call myself a recovering control freak because I come from the world of, like, I know how to do everything, or I knew how to do everything. And the first 10 years of my business was basically just me. When I shifted my business model back in 2008, 2009, and shifted from being like a service provider, working as an OBM, to doing training and mentoring and building the business from that place, that was the year where the business got bigger than me. Right. And my coach at the time was like, Tina, you need to hire an OBM. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. What a novel idea. I can't imagine. But like, as a default, I want to do everything on my own, or I thought I had to do everything on my own. I mean, there's this real journey from a leading a company perspective, and especially depending on where you're headed and the vision and how much you want to grow, that we think we have to do everything. We think we need to keep everything on our plate. We think everything needs to come to us, through us, et cetera. Where the truth is, that's the piece that will suck the life out of somebody. Right. In a growth cycle, is if you keep trying to keep your finger in every pie and on top of every little detail. I mean, between having the right team and systems in place, the business can really grow and not have it be perpetually on the shoulders of whoever's leading the company. So partnering with an OBM, from that perspective, it's really, I always say too, the OBM's ultimate job in many ways is to free up the business owner. Right. Free up the CEO, the leader of the company, to be able to work on growing the company and doing what they do best, and having somebody else run the business behind the scenes for them.
Well, what if somebody is doing everything on their own? They have a good business, but they're a little frantic. Mm-hmm. Can the OBM start out kind of wearing 2 hats, do some of the VA work until there's more income, right? Because basically you got to grow your staff. I mean, because in a way, like, to have an OBM, really, you need to have at least 1, maybe 3 or 4 other part-timers somewhere that OBM is managing.
Yeah, it depends on where the business is at. If you're just in the early 6-figure stage of the business, I mean, it's exactly it. You're not going to have a budget to go out and hire 10 people tomorrow, nor would I recommend that anyone does. But one of the things we caution people of, because in a perfect world, or in an ideal world, I should say, a lot of times I work a lot with helping people hire, hire in particular outsource and virtual folks to help grow their business, to help them run their business. People are always like, oh, I wish I could find one person to do it all. It's like, well, of course, we all wish that. Wouldn't that be nice? But it doesn't work that way. And ultimately, there's a big difference between doing and managing. If you hire one person and expect them to do everything, then the management is going to fall to the side. Right. There's not going to be anybody planning ahead, looking ahead, being proactive, getting things in place. The business will stay in reactive chaos, let's wing it every day mode if you have somebody too focused on the doing. Likewise, too, though, if the business isn't in a space where there's a ton of work going on yet, or there's a ton of budget to hire people. When I hired Tiffany as my OBM, and Tiffany's the one who runs the OBM side of the business now, but she's the person I hired to be my OBM back in 2010, the beginning of 2010. She came in, we had a VA who did the lather, rinse, repeat stuff. Like you send out the e-zine and some techie stuff here and there. And other than that, Tiffany was doing quite a bit. And then it's sort of this teeter-totter effect over time of like, as we continue to grow, okay, let's bring somebody else in to do this piece so that we can get that off Tiffany's plate, et cetera, with that. So there's definitely a level of doing that comes into play, which really depends on where the business is at. And it's ultimately, what does the business need?
Right.
Any kind of business growth, any kind of structure needs to really answer the question of what the business needs, more so than what the people think they want or need.
And are most of these OBMs, are they in the U.S.?
A lot. They're international too, though.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I guess they could help then, right, find the VAs or manage those.
Yes.
To help you then continue to grow. Because, I've bounced around from full-time staff to contractors to VAs. I've had all the above. And for the most part, everyone has let me down.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And this is the thing, like hiring is hard. Hiring, I think, is one of the most challenging and at times disheartening aspects of running a business. That's really the heart of why I created the CEO Business School as well, too. And we're doing some really specific stuff in the fall, leading into really talking to people about the team side of business and, who do you need and when do you need them and what does it look like to lead someone? And it's because at the end of the day, it's a relationship. Right. And relationships are hard. And especially none of us came into business, well, myself, even though I had a business degree. Any business, I don't know about nowadays, my business degree was like over 20 years ago, but a business degree at that point would teach you how to work for corporate and never taught anything about, how to hire as an entrepreneur,
right,
or a small business owner, any of that kind of stuff. So most people I know, we get into the work that we're doing because we love what we want to make a difference. We love what we're doing, et cetera. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute, this thing's growing. Like, now what the heck do I do? Or somebody tells you, oh, you need to hire a VA. Okay, I'll go hire a VA.
Right.
Then like, well, what are they going to do for me?
Right.
And if you hire the wrong person, they don't know how to, determine what needs to be done. It can be hard. It can be really challenging. That's a part of that's a bigger part of my mission, if you will. It's kind of my secret mission. It's not something that you're going to see plastered on my website in various ways, but the reason why we have the online business manager side of the business and then the CEO Business School side is ultimately I want to see people paired up and doing their best work together.
Right.
I want to see these CEOs and leaders and like people like you and everybody who's out there doing amazing work have the support, have trusted support that they really want and need for their business. So you have a foundation to actually grow on that you can trust and believe in and feel solid with. And then likewise, people on the other side of the coin, the OBMs, the VAs, the web folks, et cetera, Infusionsoft people, all that stuff, that they get to do great work. Yep. And they get to work with great clients and everybody's having a good experience. That doesn't always happen. Right. It's a little bit of a, it's a little bit of, it's definitely, I should say, a lot of bit of a challenge in some ways for certain people. So,
right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, this has been fantastic. I'll be linking to your book.
But I'm not crying yet. I thought you were supposed to make me cry.
Oh, yeah. I captured it. I went ahead and muted while you were doing it. I took sympathy on you. So we've got TinaForsyth.com, and that's Forsyth, right? And that's your Twitter handle, Tina Forsyth on Twitter. So we'll be linking to you and buying your books. And any parting words of wisdom for our listeners?
Oh, I mean, ultimately just build the business that you really want to build for yourself. It doesn't matter what the work is. I just think it's so easy to get caught up in the could, should, woulds of everything. And that can work any direction. It was like, oh, everybody should create a 7-figure empire. It's like, well, maybe that's not what you want for who you are in the lifestyle or the work you love to do. It's really just being aware of what it is you really want and knowing that there is a way to create success from that place. And it doesn't have to look like what everybody else is doing out there.
Right. Build what you want to build. Amen.
Yes, amen to that. I agree.
All right. Tina Forsyth, all the way from that overseas, far away country with crazy ham and whiskey and kind of sort of okay, decent hockey.
Oh,
that'll bring out a tear. Won't it? You got a mad tear coming up right there. Well, thanks for coming on the Sales Podcast. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Have a great day. Who is pushing you out of your nest? I love how she talked about how Andrea Lee helped her do that. If you need somebody to push you out, I'm your guy. I am certainly not a shoulder to cry on. You know that. But seriously, you do need someone helping you to read the label, right? The old saying, you can't read the label from inside the bottle. Having someone push you is a good thing. I'm working with a client right now, and I'm going to see her in San Diego this next week. Actually, as I'm recording this, it's next week. But when you listen to this, when I publish this, it would have been last week that I'm hanging out with her. So as I get permission, I'll share some of the things we're working on and her successes. But almost a 400% increase in her opt-ins on her website per month, went from 100 to 383. I had her 10X one of her products. It was a low-end product, but she was way undercharging it. And just yesterday, as I record this on our coaching call, mapped out a plan for her to apply the old 80-20 rule to her list of subscribers and customers. And she has a monthly subscription plan, very underpriced. I'm telling her already to double that and then make plans to double it again. But I gave her ideas how to create a 10X offering based on that monthly pricing for a higher level service, and then how to 10X that for an even more elite, more exclusive package. And she just never thought of it. Okay, and it's not that I'm some genius. I heard it from someone else. You know, you have to constantly be learning and growing and be open to new ideas. You know, my client, she's an expert in other fields. And she's already done a great job in growing her business, growing her list. But again, you can't read the label from inside the bottle. And too often we look around and see what the competition is doing, and then we do something similar. And like I said at the beginning of this, if you look and sound and act just like your competition, the only way they can tell that you're different is by your price. So it's good to get outsiders. You know, I'm working with a very successful real estate firm right now, and one of the reasons they hired me was because I'm not in the real estate industry. Now, I have experience in real estate. I had a license in Texas back in, 2002, 2003. I've built spec homes. I've owned commercial property. I'm doing a fixer-upper right now. So I'm conversant in it, but by no means an expert. You know, when I say I'm doing a flip or fixer-upper, it means I gave somebody some money and he's doing it. Okay? So by me showing up and not being confined or restricted to what everybody else is doing in the real estate industry, I can give them a fresh perspective. And it's on all the one-on-one meetings I've had with their team and then meeting with the owners, husband-wife team. They've been very productive. We're streamlining the automation and the follow-up sequences they do, totally changing their verbiage on how they speak with prospects, how they qualify and disqualify, you know, the tire kickers, how they set firm appointments, how they get to the bottom line of what's really important to the prospect. And I've never been in the real estate industry, you know, so, you know, I'm working with life coaches. I'm working with real estate professionals and business owners and independent agents and interior designers and a wedding guide. You know, I mean, how different can that be? All right, how little experience could I have in anything except somebody publishing a wedding guide magazine? Been a client for years. The point is, humans are humans, and what gets people to take action and to take notice is universal. It's in our DNA, So get somebody from outside of your industry, maybe even somebody in your industry. That's fine, but somebody's going to be tough on you and push you. Just like when you get a fitness trainer, you and I know how to jog. We know how to do a push-up, how to do sit-ups. Okay, how to use a stair climber. But when you have somebody there watching you and pushing you and holding you accountable, you go a little bit harder. You go a little bit farther. You dig a little bit deeper. So I love Tina's story there in the beginning. And now she's helping others do the same thing with her OBM program. And she didn't just lay down when she went through her divorce, and we didn't get too much into that, but she mentioned she was a single mom, and I know her husband, and that was tough, and everybody that knew him, but she plowed on. She continues moving forward, and she's excelling. Okay, so onward and upward. Have big goals. Look at them. Think big, but act small. Right? Look at the little things; they will get you. The little things have to be done, right. They have to be done repeatedly, but you don't always have to do them. You need to figure out, is that something you need to do, or can you outsource it, right? Give it to someone else. Can you automate it, or can you delete it? Those are your options. And so if you need that type of help when it comes to social media marketing, with marketing in general, with streamlining the work you do with assistants, I encourage you to check out what Tina's got going on. Again, everything is linked on her episode. It's thesaleswhisperer.com/session 212. And when you're there, be sure to sign up for the daily email and the inbound sellers. And please leave a 5-star review for this episode, for this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, all those great places. And leave me a comment as well. Let me know you're out there. Let me know what you think of this. Let me know if there's a topic you'd like me to discuss, someone in particular you'd like me to interview. And you will get an answer from me, I guarantee. So as always, thank you for listening. And remember to sell different.